Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey. And have you ever felt like it's even more difficult to stay focused in today's age? Well, Debbie Georgianni and Adam Blai are going to be getting the scoop of why that is and how we can do the next right thing and stay focused. Good morning, Debbie.
Well, thank you so much, Keith. And it's Thursday edition of The Next Right Thing. And I've said this, I think, every single Thursday since we started Morning Joy. We love the luminous mysteries. Thank you, John Paul II. Love the mysteries of light. But that's not what we're talking about today. We just want to remind you to pray the luminous mysteries because the rosary is so powerful. We're really talking about keeping focused. And Adam, I'll let you begin, and I'm going to jump right in because this is something that you have drilled into my head numerous times about staying focused. Even when there's all these distractions and all these things happening, and even people can be a distraction, and you just keep reminding me to stay focused.
Yeah. So, this idea of who's in charge of our mind, who's in charge of our time, what we allow to take over our thoughts and take over our time in life it's one of the central struggles, honestly, in the information age, I think. In psych, when you're treating mental illness, we learned a lot about this, in training in psychology. I have a master's in adult clinical psych and a number of years of experience, forensic settings. So, in that training and working with people, you see when the internal world, can be disordered and completely dominate the person. Like somebody's thoughts that are spinning out of control, their anxiety being out of control, and they can't shut it down or regulate it. Sometimes it's depressive thoughts, sometimes it's OCD. And these are kind of the extreme versions of what we all have. We all have a little bit of these struggles. Okay. And the church has, over centuries and centuries, tried to help us with this. The saints have tried to help us with this because the saints tried to, many of them tried to foster a life of deep prayer that was very frequent or continuous, and yet also function in the world. Okay, so what are some of the things that we learned between psychology and the church? In order to keep focused on the good and positive things in life, the spiritual things in life, the joyful things in life, first, we need to not be swept away by the world. And particularly in the information age, we have advertisers and technology that wants to keep us scrolling and staring at a screen for 8 hours a day or more. They would be completely happy if we just became nothing but a little economic machine that stares at a screen and ads and makes them money without any care for our well-being. And you see this, of course, in news stories about, the depression rate among young people that are raised on their phones, the impact on education, et cetera, et cetera. So, kind of first off, we need to not let the world dominate us through the technology. Next, which is a big thing, with this election, I believe, and just in general, we need to not let the news keep us scared and angry all the time, because the news uses fear and anger to grab attention, because the negative emotions are more powerful than the positive emotions for getting attention. If you say, be careful, don't go in that room, there's a rattlesnake, that gets your attention immediately because there's a threat. If you say, oh, there's a pretty nice kitten in the other room, and it was really nice, I went and pet them earlier today, it's like, oh yeah, I'm a little bit interested, but I don't feel that rush when there's a threat. Okay, so the news wants to keep us scared and angry all the time, because then we're going to pay attention. If things are basically calm and moving along well, we're going to disengage from the news and say, well, there's no threat to worry about. I'm going to focus on myself and the positive things in life. So they're going to spin things towards fear and anger. They're going to accentuate that. They're even going to lie and make it more extreme. Okay. And then what about the demands of everyday life when we never take a break from worrying about them? So these can be the mundane things. Paying the bills. Yes, it's important. We need to do it. But if we allow that to dominate 100% of our day, we haven't given any kind of peaceful time, trust in God, a little bit of prayer time, even in the midst of being concerned about getting through the day. We can't let life become just getting through the day, and then we're old and retire and we die. There has to be more to it. But what do you think so far, Deb?
I find it interesting how you explain it to all of us, and it is really it's really a massive, complex manipulation of how to control us as a group and to move us in a certain direction that really leaves us without what actually leaves us mindlessly going in that direction. And to me, as I hear you describing it, I'm thinking, man, this is bad. It's that no wonder people are making some really foolish choices in life, or wasting a lot of time, or it's wow, it's a complex system working against us, Adam.
Oh yeah, sure. And advertising has always sought to do that, right?
Right.
You want to grab attention and then get somebody to give you their money as quick as possible before they move on and start attending to something else. So you need to grab their attention and say, do it now. Give me your money now, in some form or another. And it's been refined, and the technology has like cranked that up to 11, to use the old joke. Okay. So as we said, first we need to not be swept away by the world. We also need to not be swept away by our internal world. So sometimes it's our own thoughts that are spiraling out of control, that we can't get a handle on, that even when the advertisers and the technology isn't there to make us scared and angry, we've internalized it so much that we just work ourselves up. We replay these things in our mind. In psychology, a fancy word for that is an introject. We have an introject of our parents, right? My father's, he's passed on, but I have an internal version of him in my mind that I can kind of evoke and wonder, what would Dad say? What's a typical thing that Dad would do in this situation? And I can kind of picture it and feel it right away because I've been around him a lot. Well, when we've been saturated with fear and anger and all these manipulations for so long, we start doing it to ourselves internally without even necessarily realizing it, just sitting around getting worked up and angry over and over about things that we've been trained to focus on. So we need to learn how to control that. We need to learn to have boundaries so that other people don't completely determine our feelings and our thoughts. So here I'm not just mentioning like technology and advertising, but just moving through the day. Human beings will kind of naturally and instinctively try to flood us with their view of the world, their feelings, their thoughts on things, tell us how we're supposed to think and feel, which is as they are in that moment. It kind of happens naturally, but having boundaries is a huge thing you learn when you're learning to be a therapist and work with people. Because if you don't have boundaries, your clients end up flooding you with how they feel and think, and you're useless to them. As opposed to giving an outside perspective, you just step into their world with them, and now you're just both lost in that world. So learning to have boundaries is really important. The final thing we need to not be swept away by are dramatical and repeated changes in our plans in our life that we can't control. Change is inevitable. Those old jokes, God laughs when we lay these big plans for our lives and our years. And, that's what makes God laugh, because life never works out the way, exactly the way we'd like. And so plans change, life changes, circumstance change. And if we let that kind of get us flustered and upset and throw our hands up in the air every time something changes, we're basically never going to engage and kind of be centered and do things well. So those are my thoughts on the things we need to avoid controlling us if we're going to keep focused. And then from there.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah.
Okay, in life coaching, we talk about practicing your way out of these things that control us. Mm. How would you suggest we practice our way out of it?
Well, I would say do a little exercise. So what you need to do is find a technique that works for you. And some are fairly universal. Like you could do a Google search on cognitive behavioral psychology techniques, and you'll see some of the basics there right away. You could pick something simple like disengage from what is getting you riled up. Take a minute, close your eyes, focus on what you want to get out of your day and how you want to live this day for, say, 10 seconds. And then open your eyes and re-engage. And, these are just little things you can try. I would say try it in tiny doses to try to practice a new way of engaging with the world, and do it in tiny little bits of time, a few minutes, 30 seconds, and then let that slowly grow. Because if you say, well, today I'm just going to be radically different and totally healthy and have boundaries, and I'm not going to let anything bother me all day. Well, you're setting an unrealistic goal. Start small, find something that works for you, and then practice it over and over. That's what I would say.
Beautiful. Adam, this is good. This is good information today. I think we all needed to hear it right about now. I know we only have about a minute. We're going to send it back to Keith, our wonderful host, for some announcements, and then he'll flip it back to us for the final segment. But are you noticing an uptick of people feeling overwhelmed by what's going on in the world, and kind of it's being so loud with them? I mean, we're noticing this. We're noticing people calling in saying, I just can't take it anymore. I need to go to like a retreat center, or I need to go into some mountaintop somewhere and shut out the world. Are you noticing it too?
Well, I think what I'm noticing is the impact of so much change happening one after the other.
Gotcha.
So, the election was a big change for a lot of people, and there's been a cascade of almost daily, changes politically and economically since then. And then Pope Francis dying is a big change. It's like the entire world is reacting to that. All the secular news, it seems like that's all you hear when you turn the radio on or, tune into anything. Yeah. I think we're kind of reeling right now.
Right. So just too much change all at once. That's why I'm saying this is really good information right about now. Okay, let's send it back to Keith, and then he'll send it back to us after he's done giving us these important announcements.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Debbie. Yeah, there's too much change, and we're way too connected to keep up on what's happening. So I feel that, Debbie, I kind of want to just go out into, maybe we'll all just go to Italy. Yeah, and just live off of the land there. That sounds amazing. Anyways, quick little announcement for those, especially in the Houston area. I want to make sure to save the date for the Guadalupe Radio Network's Summer Speaker Series. It's going to be June 26th. And of course, we've got Dr. Ray Garundi. He's going to be there. Tickets and information will be coming to the website very soon. Just keep an eye on grnonline.com. Stay focused. I got to keep reminding myself this. If you listen to the After Show Clubhouse, we've talked quite a bit. That would be my patronage. So, anyways, coming up next, we've been seeing an uptick of people feeling very much overwhelmed. What's the cause of it, and how we can do the next right thing. We got to stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Morning Joy, where truth matters.
Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and on the final segment here on The Next Right Thing with Debbie Georgianni and Adam Blai, whole conversation has been about staying focused and not getting too overwhelmed about what's happening, the too many changes that are happening in the world. But hey, take it away, Debbie.
Okay, thanks so much, Keith. This is the final segment of The Next Right Thing for the Thursday edition of Morning Joy. And we're talking about keeping focused. And I think it's very important right about now as we are dealing with all of these changes and things that are happening, the unknowns that are going on around us, and what does the future hold for us? I mean, how do we stay focused? How do we get in alignment with God? Oh, you can hear the intensity in my voice because I'm dealing with it too. I mean, I have to be on social media because of the work that I do in the life coaching. And I know, Adam, you've kind of turned off social media. So has Jerry Escher as well. My two co-hosts are not on social media. So I'm doing all the work for both shows there on social media. And let me tell you, it's put a lot of gray hairs on my head. I'm just going to say.
Yeah. Well, I never really engaged with social media to begin with. I looked at Facebook when it first came out, and it seemed like, I don't know, it seemed like an attention machine where people were immediately vying for other people's attention. And I didn't feel a need to try to get other people's attention. I guess that's just how I'm built. I mean, I know we're here on the radio, but that's not for attention. That's to try to hopefully share something. Anyway, what are some of the things that we can do to keep focus? So in the first segment, we talked about don't be swept away by the world outside. Don't be swept away by your internal world, your thoughts and your feelings. And don't let radical change kind of rock you so much that you can never settle down and engage with life. Now, when it comes to the spiritual things that it's good to stay focused on, we have tried and true methods that the church has given us, that, spiritual life has given us, practicing the spiritual life has given us down through the centuries. A few of those things are, I know this sounds simple, but the fixed prayers of the church, meaning like the Our Father,
the Hail Mary,
the Glory Be,
Memorare.
the basics, and those are fixed prayers. The words are given to us, and there's certainly value in those, and you can meditate on those, and what you'll get out of them will evolve through your life and the seasons of your life, and they're very useful. And of course, Jesus told us how to pray. He taught us the Our Father and said, "This is how you should pray." And of course, the Rosary is kind of my go-to, and especially for deliverance. Yeah,
Me too.
For deliverance prayer, the Rosary I think is the best prayer. I don't think we need to. Anyway, so fixed prayers are one way to get grounded, right? So we harness our thoughts, we take our attention off of the outside world, the advertising, the screen that we're staring at, the demands of other people. We disengage from that, and we engage with these words, which are mostly internal. So it's usually an internal experience. So we orient our attention to our internal spiritual life, and we use those words as oftentimes repetition when it comes to the Rosary, not as a vain repetition of empty prayers, but as a way to focus the mind on prayer and hopefully enter more deeply into it. Like when I pray the Rosary, after 5 or 10 minutes is when I actually really settle into it. It takes a few minutes for me. Okay, so fixed prayers is one way to disengage from the world and engage with the spiritual. Giving a day a week has always been a traditional thing for a Christian. Giving, Sunday, the Lord's Day, setting that day aside, not doing work. For us in the modern world, it's often a part of one day each week. Sadly, a lot of times it's just the hour that you spend at Mass for a lot of folks. So giving a day a week or a chunk of time a week to God is really important. You shouldn't let a whole week go by and completely ignore God. Go to Mass, go to confession, get the sacramental graces, spend 15 minutes in adoration, spend 30 minutes in adoration. Sit down and read the Bible for 10 minutes, for 30 minutes. Do something where you're giving attention to God and growing a little bit, seeking that grace. Another really powerful thing is reading about spiritual matters, like the history of the spiritual life, the different charisms and the different religious orders and how they pray and live and what they've learned. You could read Therese of Lisieux and her little way. You could read, deeper stuff, not deeper in a judgmental say on that, but like more complex things like The Interior Castle by Teresa of Avila. So reading on spiritual matters is very powerful. And we have tons of material that have come from the individual human perspective. Somebody saying, I spent 30 years, I spent 40 years, I spent 50 years of my life pursuing God, and here's what worked for me. And that's essentially what a lot of these books are. So spending that little bit of time each week, some way give some time to God. Okay, so fixed prayers, giving God some time, reading holy things. One thing we've talked about, Deb, keeping holy images and reminders in your daily life. This can be powerful because our phones and our screens give us constant reminders. Be scared, be angry, be outraged. Look at this over here. Watch out for that. Give me your money. Well, keeping holy images and reminders in our day-to-day life, is giving your mind an alternative to the manipulative machinery that the information age has refined to a science to grab you and hold you. And the holy images, they're not there to do that. They're there to inspire this positive internal experience and relationship with God. It's very different. What do you think?
Well, here's what I'm thinking, okay? Just because, you're not really engaged in social media and you don't need to depend on it to do your work in the Diocese of Pittsburgh, correct? In the tribunal?
Right.
All right. So I'm saying that if you don't have to be on social media, if you don't have to be connected to technology, I say just disconnect. That's the easiest way to do it. You just have to withdraw and completely, remove yourself. Because as you were talking, I was just getting agitated by you talking. I'm being honest, because the world is so overwhelming. It's so loud. It's obnoxious. And it makes you full of fear, and it makes you really, that's why, remember I said a couple of weeks ago, do you remember the time that I think it might have even been on the Spirit World, where I said, Adam, I'm noticing everybody's agitated.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not good. Now, if you have to be hooked to technology, which on some level I do have to, because we have to keep our ministry, relevant and we have to keep up to date on what's happening in the Catholic world and everything. So I'm just trying to apply this to myself right now, and I'm just letting our Morning Joy listeners, obviously listen in to how we're discussing this, because maybe they could relate to this. I guess the best thing to do is detox on a regular basis from this every day.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that, like turning your phone off one day a week, or, a certain number of hours a day. Yeah. I think you can even set a schedule in it where, you can shut off all the notifications and whatnot. I think that would be great. I mean, honestly, I don't know how people do it, Deb.
I don't either.
I don't have any time. You mean
where they have to live on it all the time? Yeah.
Yeah, like where do you find the time? I don't know. There's no way it would drive me crazy.
Well, this was very helpful information. I know I needed to hear it today, because especially with the Holy Father's passing and everything that's going on, everybody's trying to make sure we're up in the news and we know the latest details of breaking news, and it's overwhelming. I mean, the hills of Sicily are looking better and better every day with just no technology at all. Okay, Adam, that'll do it for today. I think this was great. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and we'll send it back to Keith for the rest of Morning Joy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Debbie and Adam. And this one really spoke to you. Make sure to find it anywhere where you listen to podcasts, really. So make sure to find, or at least search Morning Joy Radio or GRN online, and you'll be able to re-listen to it, share it with friends and family. You can do that as well on any of the videos that are produced here as well. Just search, once again, Morning Joy or GRN online on, say, YouTube or Rumble. And what's really interesting, especially on X, when you realize that people are getting paid to keep other people upset, you almost can kind of tell what's happening in the post almost immediately. And then that's a great way of just like skipping through it, or just blocking or muting the individual. So that way you won't continue to see the upsetting tweets, whatever you call posts. And yeah, I think Adam had a great point, putting some time limits on our apps. Anyways, hey, coming up next, Alan Smith is joining us on Bishop Sheen Today, talking about the connections with the Holy Face and Easter. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Morning Joy, where truth matters.